Trevor. And, slow weekend in the fight game. We just had some fights this past weekend for the UFC. I commentated a grappling card that had some sambo on it.
Been crushing the commentary game. You've
been very busy this month.
Like every weekend this month has been some kind of
it's interesting because
like jiu-jitsu commentating, and it's through Flow Grappling, which is a huge feather in the cap for your combat sport commentating career. Yeah,
I made my Flow Grappling debut this year in March, and I think I've done like 5 shows on Flow Grappling so far.
That's wicked.
My New Year's resolution this year was to either be on Fight Pass or be on Flow Grappling, so Flow Grappling's out of the way, Fight Pass this year hopefully. But yeah, I've been very busy, and I've been doing this for like 3 years, and in that time, I've been doing combat sports commentary for about 3 years, and in that time, especially during COVID, but even when it was very active, and even when there was a commission in North Carolina, November, December always are the slowest months.
Yes.
Nobody wants to fight. Nobody wants to fight in the lead up to Thanksgiving. And nobody wants to fight in the lead up to Christmas or during Christmas week.
The whole reason I moved to Florida is because I was like, even in December, there's fights like 4 days on the weekend, and it's all like right nearby.
But jiu-jitsu guys, they don't
stop.
Most of them don't really, they don't really train like they're in fight camp all the time. They're just training. Yeah. And a super fight to them is, just a higher intensity version of a role they would probably do.
There's so many, and there's like a different type of wear and tear that you can do a grappling tournament every month.
Yeah, and the stakes are reasonably low, and expectations are reasonably low. So while it is it is intense. Like Josh's match was very intense, and the main event was very intense, and there were a lot of very, very intense fights. Most of them tend to be at a very respectful pace of each other. Really, most people aren't going out there with the intention of ripping and tearing an arm or something like that. So it's a more chill kind of environment for me. It's more, I always call it the golf commentary of combat sports commentary.
The world's most exciting golf commentary.
Because I'm just sitting there and I don't, in MMA when you and I are on the desk, it's there are so many things that can make me just start yelling,
Yes.
But in jiu-jitsu that really only happens when something just bizarre or insane happens, Christian O'Brien. Have you ever heard this name before?
Yeah. Summer's boyfriend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Trains under John Piper at Charlotte Jiu-Jitsu Academy. Probably one of the most active guys.
Super active.
In terms of jiu-jitsu in the community. He had a super fight on Saturday, and he did a submission that I've actually literally never seen anybody before do, live or otherwise. I didn't have a name for it. So for somebody to be able to do that, as long as I've been trained, as long as I've been doing it, it was pretty astounding. That's one of the few things that can make me kind of just completely break my professional facade when it comes to that. So I'm gonna find
this watching jiu-jitsu super fights like that to me is I've been to so many jiu-jitsu tournaments where you see so many dude, I'm not a great grappler, hence the reason why I'm a full-time striking coach.
Right.
You go to some of these tournaments, it's man, you see some bad matches. But, these super fights that are going on, it's people are picking, I know this is an active blue belt against an active blue belt. They're getting the active people that have matches with each other, and I dig that. It's a lot of fun to watch, man. I enjoy watching these, one-off fights, and now there's a lot more, combat jiu-jitsu going on. I'm
Speaking of which, on the podcast, we're gonna be watching and reviewing a fight with all of you. Me and Trevor are gonna be watching on my phone, but I'll make sure that you guys
I haven't seen the full thing yet.
Hasn't seen the full thing of it. I cornered a student of ours named Josh Cole this weekend.
Harvey Birdman, attorney at law.
A grappling super fight, and we'll talk more a little bit about Josh when we get to that part. But yeah, he's a newer student, been training jiu-jitsu for a year or so, but only for 4 months very consistently, and pretty much all of that has been
he was in a makeshift jiu-jitsu club at ECU or
exactly,
something like that. Has high school wrestling experience.
Definitely somebody that you would think of as a wrestler guy getting into jiu-jitsu, but I think over the past couple months, him rolling with me and rolling with people at Elevate, he's become more of an all-around grappler, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. But I'm going to show Trevor, I'm going to try to put this in the podcast, probably here or here or here.
Editing magic.
Somewhere, yeah. There will be this video as long as the Twins Versus channel doesn't mind me showing it. But yeah, I'm going to show this submission that Christian O'Brien hit this weekend. So it's called a kneel knot. So you can see where he's kind of working a rubber guard. Yeah. He's got that hook behind the head, and he reaches through his own leg to close the loop.
Is wicked. Holy shit.
And you can see that like Jack, his opponent, thinks that he's all good, so he tries to like stand up, and it just makes it all the tighter.
Like, that's wild how he has his wrists at both carotid. He's using the rubber guard around the back to help like cinch it tight, and it creates like this little triangle of death with his two wrists and his shin.
And it was tight. You can see Jack's head is turning purple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that is fucking cool.
That is called the kneel knot, apparently, but when it was going on in the moment, I had no words to describe it.
Should be called the Legend of the Zelda. He got stuck in the Triforce right there.
Yeah.
that was
that's
impressive.
I know there's a lot of triangles in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I didn't think that one was possible, right? Like, I've never seen... It's hard for me to see...
I just failed geometry.
A triangle that I've never seen before. Yeah. But congratulations to Christian O'Brien.
That's fucking cool,
sick
man.
highlight.
That is awesome.
I think this video on the Versus Twins channel, let's see if I can see, or their Instagram rather, let's see if I can see how many views it has. It has 278,000 views.
Shit.
Congratulations, Christian.
Good job, Christian. Kid's gone viral.
Originally, I was supposed to, I'm not sure what happened, but originally I was supposed to co-commentate with Joel Maddock because I saw Joel Maddock at the Asheville Carolina Combat League, and I just said hey to him, and he turns out he had listened to our podcast and had heard the things I said about him after Conflict 50 and all that stuff, and he remembered me.
Yeah.
So I was like, dude, you should come on. You should come to hometown sometime, teach a guillotine seminar.
I was like, the fuck did we say last time? Is he gonna fight us?
No, he was just, we were very complimentary of him.
No, he has a fuck ton of guillotines. He retired, and I'm really, you being really upset when he retired. Yeah.
He's an awesome guy, and that was the other thing I saw at CCL. Like we said, we had our grappling debut for hometown martial arts this past weekend at Carolina Combat League, and our student Josh Cole took on Julian Williams. We're going to review the VOD here on the podcast with all of you.
You're going to have the volume up or down?
You can have it down because I'll probably play it very... And also, I'm so loud in the thing. Like, I'm good on...
So who was commentating with you? Ricky was on this?
Ricky and Vernon. Vernon commentated Sambo with me, and Ricky commentated the rest of the card while producing the show and announcing. I mean, this guy was fucking killing it.
I'll come fucking announce at a Carolina Combat League thing. Like, just
there won't be long before there's one in Raleigh.
No charge. I'm just fucking down to see some.
There's going to be one at Raleigh.
Oh shit! I'm so down for that.
It's going to be somewhere where you might not want.
Oh no, I did hear about that.
You're fine to go there and announce. Like, I'm sure it wouldn't be a big deal.
Slap a crackhead.
All right, so we're gonna watch this match. Basically, Josh has been training with us for a little while. There were a couple names, and I picked who I thought would be the hardest matchup for him. His opponent's name is Julian Williamson. He fights out of Charlotte Jiu-Jitsu Academy as well with Christian O'Brien, as well as my friend Jacob Polanski, and a bunch of other people. Owen Tipton's out of that gym as well. I mean, they're very active. Jesus Christ, Trevor. They're extremely active.
I'm trying my best.
It's less than 5 minutes. Just hold it in your hands, I would say. Fine. Maybe turn the brightness up.
Yeah, I don't know why that is.
Trevor asked, I was going to pull it up on my phone, but then we couldn't figure out the Wi-Fi password, and Trevor asked if he should pull it up on his phone, and I said yes, but then I forgot that Trevor is a grandpa. Yeah. All right, so Josh came out really with strong wrestling, as he always does. Julian is definitely a more experienced jiu-jitsu practitioner, has a lot of super fights, and is a blue belt at a very tough school. So he made an Instagram post that he was coming to out-wrestle Josh, and I was like, Josh, he's going to give us a lot of openings, because as you can see, Julian is very strong.
I like that
he's
attacking. He's keeping control of the wrist and the inside collar, like, that's slick. And then he started to fight for that foot sweep.
But he makes a crucial error, which is that he keeps giving Josh his underhook. And if you watch the match, you can hear me screaming, Josh, if he gives you an underhook, that's a body lock. And that's like, the underhook's the first step to go into a body lock. Josh pummels very beautifully there.
Maybe we might have to put you in front of the table.
Liz, get out of the way. All right, so now that's where he gets that underhook big time.
Nice.
Turns it into a huge, I guess I'm not a judo guy, but that's like a over-the-hip throw of some sort, an uchi something. And I was screaming at Josh to get super heavy here and just cook him. And I actually really liked Josh's approach right here to just try to get Julian to reach up for the Kimura. I was a little worried that he would be coming around for half guard here. So I was like, Josh, you need to get real heavy on that hip. And he just didn't quite get his weight over him. So Julian starts to invert, comes back in on a Kimura grip, and I was happy with how Josh defended this. I go for a lot of Kimura attacks in the gym, so Josh gets hit with this move a lot. So Josh puts his head right into the sternum and drives forward while changing the angle on the Kimura to make it not a threat. Every time Julian threw up a triangle in this match, Josh immediately looked at the ceiling and kept his posture. But Julian right now in this full guard is just about to make Josh work so much. And I'm screaming right now at Josh to smack him. And Julian's doing a great job of controlling the wrist and constantly trying to get Josh to work. And Josh does land a couple really good slaps here.
Yeah.
Josh stood up right there, but he didn't get his knee in the middle. I was screaming to get his knee in the middle. And I was like, if he lets you stand up again, you got to get your knee in the middle. So now Josh is trying to force his knee in the middle from the ground, which leans your head forward and makes you vulnerable to a lot of attacks. Julian's looking at that Kimura again. And I was screaming at Josh like he wants the Kimura. You need a body lock. Because if you can reach around somebody's body, you can body lock them and work that pass that I think Josh is very good at. But
I did the same thing in an MMA fight where it's like if you know that person on top is trying to strike, you have to catch the glove on the way up, and that's your chance to open up the guard, sit your hit ups out, and like pull them into. Like it really presents itself in like striking situations. You know how to control the arms. Like you can really find that triangle off your back.
He tries to sit up for a hip bump sweep, but Josh is wise to that move. I definitely hit that move a lot in practice.
And if you have a wrestling base, it's pretty easy to kind of smash through that.
Yeah, but now this is the point where Josh has been forced to smash a lot.
Yeah.
Forced to smash. And
that takes some cardio if you're not used to it in that kind of situation.
Press hard. This is Josh's first time in a super fight, but he's definitely competed in wrestling a lot before. But as we all know, jiu-jitsu, its own form of cardio.
This is also
where
a different kind of
get
environment and stuff like that.
So Josh is in a tight armbar here, and I'm screaming hitchhiker escape, and I can't see the detail on how he escaped, so I don't know if he actually did, but he definitely is not having his arm hyperextended here.
No.
It's clear of the line, so I think he did.
I think it's like
this is Julian's best sequence. Reverse butterfly hook. Josh doesn't clear the leg.
Wow.
Gets swept over. I'm screaming at Josh to get up. Josh doesn't make it to the wrestling in time. And right before they reset, Julian locks in this Darce. So Josh is trying to catch his breath and get back to his feet, and now he's getting choked.
Yeah.
So if you're tired, this is the end right here.
Yeah, that's also a tricky situation because you see like Josh's feet went outside the mat, so I think he was waiting for them to like break it up. Like he looked like he was waiting for a wrestler's reset. To be honest.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
He just gave up the super high mount, and he's trying to hip bridge, but you can't hip bridge when they're that high.
Yeah.
And defending the strikes, he gives up his arm. Julian takes the arm bar. And
Josh has like the adrenaline eyes going like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's looking more red than a cherry tomato.
Yeah.
But
I'm white.
But yeah, I was impressed with Josh's effort there. Super game opponent.
Yeah, really fun match to watch.
And yeah, high intensity.
Especially for
match.
it's like, you know, he's really just made jiu-jitsu into like part of his routine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that guy is solid that he went against.
Oh yeah, Julian's no joke. I mean, he had 2 losses back to back the past 2 weeks, 2 wrestlers. So I think he was just coming out there with full of piss and vinegar, and did a lot of rounds with Polanski, who's a fucking brilliant wrestler. And Polanski was also cornering him for this one. So yeah, I think that he just came with a very good game plan. He was like, I'm going out there to out-wrestle him, and if I get taken down, I'm just going to make him work it from the bottom until I get a sweep. Yeah. And he hit a beautiful sweep and ended the fight. And it was 5 minutes, but it felt like more because there was so much action in the fight. And that was kind of the last thing I told Josh before the event started, because once the event started, I had to get on commentary, so I was like checking in with him periodically. But I was like, hey, we're here to have fun. Yeah. To put on a show. Yeah. It's a grappling super fight. It's not that big of a deal. No,
I'm excited to see him get into more of that. I know like Troy's interested, Kyle's interested. They're all trying to make it a bit more of like a habit for like they seem interested in like that non-suburban jiu-jitsu is we're calling it.
Yeah, especially Troy. Troy loves to smash people for sure.
Yeah.
He'll be good at it. I just think that like that is the kind of combat jiu-jitsu match I want to see.
Yeah.
And not what we end up seeing a lot of the time.
Yeah, that was a fun, like, that looked like a combat, like, they both used strikes.
Yeah,
for
definitely.
the jiu-jitsu, like,
Definitely.
positions. I'm like, oh, that was like a good combat jiu-jitsu
Josh
match.
using the strikes to try to get Julian to work in the full guard and open up his legs so that Josh could get out, and then Julian mounting and feeding his submission from the strikes.
Yeah.
Much like you would see in an MMA fight, honestly.
Yeah,
When you see people get a high mount in an MMA fight, that is a very common finish, especially at the amateur level. People just like are trying to defend and reach up and get their arm taken. Rondo was an expert at that.
Yes.
So
yeah.
So outside of that, there were some fights that we missed. We just rewatched what Trevor said was the best one, which was Drew Dober against.
No, I really
Green.
liked the Cannoneer and
Strickland
fight.
Really?
It was really if you get the chance to watch it tonight.
So I watched highlights of all of these fights, but not the full fights themselves. And from the highlights, I don't see how people think that Strickland won. Do you agree?
If you watch it, it was definitely dead even going into the fifth.
Okay.
They both had their moments. Strickland definitely fought like he didn't give a fuck, but had been knocked out in his last fight. And look, the shots that he still took from Cannoneer, goddamn, were significant. And like we've seen what Cannoneer does at all weight classes. And damn, he really still rolled with those punches very well, but he knew like he had to stay behind his jab. He found a lot of great counters in that fight, and he put Cannoneer on the back pedal from his jab in like the second and fourth rounds. And then that fifth round, Eric Nixick was calling for, he had the right idea of having this up kick like up the middle. He was like, dude, Cannoneer's head is on line with your jab. Can you please put your toes underneath your fucking jab on the outside? But you can tell like Strickland really wanted to hit him, but at the same time, didn't want to risk like that kick possibly putting him into a big hook. And so that means that like he did feel enough of those shots. He was like, I don't want to risk that. But that just shows like the lack of his kick. Like he
also doesn't seem like a guy who's
he's not a big kicker, but he did throw that push kick like once or twice, and it did find the mark. And I was like, damn, if he could have had Cannoneer run to that jab, take a step back, and have it right up, it would have been a beautiful sequence. So like Eric Nixick had the right idea, but Strickland didn't have the confidence to pull that out. Like, he was debating, like, do I want to find my right hook? Because his right hook landed behind that jab. Like, it was so textbook boxing. But I think that he was kind of uncertain, like, damn, I really know I can't get stuck in front of this guy. Because you saw it happen, like, that Dober and Green fight, where it's like, Bobby Green just said, fuck it, way more than Strickland did. And Strickland kind of had enough, like, coming off that knockout loss where it's like, I'm going to play a bit smarter this time.
Yeah, they don't get easier.
And I'll say this, even in, like, that fifth round, if you had, like, a needle going for Strickland Cannoneer, it was going like this.
Really?
Like, it was, like, 30-second spurts of them, like, taking control of the fight. They had a dead even strike count going into the last exchange of the fight. Like, that's a nail-biter. They said they both had 118 strikes landed. But Cannoneer had way more forward pressure, and you can, like, in fights like that, the person that's creating that person take a step back, like, you're technically winning that engagement.
Yeah, if they're that even.
If it's that even, you know. But Strickland's best answers back were when he'd make Cannoneer walk into a jab, and Cannoneer go, man, fuck, he'd have to get a step back. And that's what put it right back for Strickland. But Strickland was just throwing the cleaner, tighter technical shots, and Cannoneer just being the gorilla that knew he had the power to back him up, just stayed behind that. Like, it really shows, like, what Izzy did to... This was a more entertaining fight than his fight with Izzy, because Strickland had way more... like, effort to stand in front and make it a fight. Like, Izzy almost having too big of a toolbox made it easier for him to avoid and dance around him, especially in that tinier cage. Like, they were in the super small cage. So, if Strickland had that bigger cage, he definitely could have found, like, those long kicks up the middle. That would have really made a difference in this fight. But I can definitely see that, they would give it to Cannoneer, like... not handedly, like he earned that win. Like
would you say
if you just saw the highlights, I'm pretty sure they showed just Cannoneer backing him up. They didn't show all the times that Cannoneer was going, oh shit.
They
like
showed
that.
So the highlights that I watched were not made by ESPN or UFC, they were made by a fan. So I was thinking that maybe they would be a little less biased, but it was shots from Sean, but they were all like significant shots while he was on the back pedal.
The back pedal, yeah.
So I was like, okay, so maybe that's why they scored it. So you kind of confirmed some of my suspicions, but one question that I had was, when you say that it was dead even going into the fifth, do you mean that that all of the rounds were that close, or that they had both won 2 rounds.
The whole they had both won 2 rounds, but
it was clear that they had both won 2 rounds.
Yeah, man, I could really see that. Like it was
because sometimes when people say something's dead even going into the 5th, what they mean is that all of the rounds have been very dead even.
But it was like that even of like that back and forth and who was finishing out the round just to get that round, and you're like, fuck, man, like if this was like in boxing, it would have been like 12 or like 10, like 3 rounds and stuff like that.
I don't think we've talked since the judging fiascos of the past couple weeks.
I didn't see those fights, so I don't have anything to say, man. Fuck yeah. I've been hearing a lot of it, and I've been like, I'll take a lot of my friends' words that Patty didn't. Well, I'd like to go back and watch it. I mean, because I can be like, if I want to watch a fight for judging, I'll watch it from a good judging viewpoint. But a lot of times I'm like, man, how's he fucking this guy up? Like,
that's definitely not what happened in Patty's
fight. I become like a NASCAR fan sometimes, like where I'm just watching. I'm just waiting for the car crash, man.
And sometimes it's very hard to tell. And that's
like when I commentate and I judge it, it's a different little mindset. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to go back and watch the Patty fight.
For me, the Patty fight came, and it wasn't necessarily that Jared Gordon was beating his ass the whole time. It was that it was boring and uneventful, and when something was happening, it was kind of Gordon creating situations. And in the last round, Gordon came out, and it seemed like Patty was maybe a little tired, and Gordon just held on to him. Mm-hmm. Like, literally just walked him to the fence and held on to him, and Patty couldn't get off the fence. That was probably the biggest thing that popped up in this fight, was Patty has shown a clear weakness to the wall work. Mm-hmm. He cannot get off the fence to save his life. He had run into that previous to the UFC as well, but it had been so long since we had seen him pressed up against the fence that maybe he had improved, but he had just gotten better at avoiding getting pinned there.
Yeah.
Or, his ringsmanship improved a little bit. And when I say his ringsmanship, I mean his ability to charge forward in a straight line while getting punched in the face, but also punching people back and making them back up. Because he's very good at that.
Yeah. He's very good at leaving his head behind his punches and creating a target for someone.
I think the fight was way too fucking close to be called a clear robbery, because I did think that Patty won the first round. I just thought that Gordon won second and third very clear.
And I want to watch, because a lot of people are saying that the first round was Jared's best round, because I was hearing that his left hook landed.
That was definitely what started early. Yeah.
So that was more like the start of the fight. Like as it went on, then Patty was coming back.
In the first couple of minutes of the fight, the first 2 minutes or so, Jared did land significantly, but every time he landed, Patty did land on the return. Mm-hmm. And I think that Jared forced the grappling more because he started to lose in the striking. And the rest of the round, like the last minute of the round, is like very completely uneventful, with mostly Patty clinching and pummeling, and he does keep him on the fence for the end of the round. So it's a pretty close round, that first round. I just thought it edged to Patty.
Yeah.
And then second and third I thought were all Gordon for the most part. I thought that Patty tried to rally in the third.
Some people were saying 30-27.
Yeah,
I saw a lot of people on social media.
Well, when they read 30-27, I was like, that makes sense.
People were reading it 30-27 for Patty.
No, I'm saying when they were announcing, when Bruce Buffer was like, all 3 judges scored this contest, 30-27, I was like, oh, that makes sense. They must have saw that first round for Gordon. Yeah. Patty! I'm like, what? Yeah, like, that's bizarre. For all 3 judges to turn in 30-27 for Patty, that it was not that kind of fight.
Yeah.
It was not. It was definitely not that kind of fight.
It should be up on like ESPN Plus in like a week or two.
And it wasn't. I don't know how long they keep this one off.
Really?
I mean, it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad.
Okay, I really.
Now, if he would have won a split decision with a 29-28 for 2 people, I'd be like, all right. Or if it was 29-28, 29-28, 28-28. Or something like that,
yeah.
It could be a fight that you could see weird scorecards turned in for,
right?
But it's very
a
weird.
A lot of people were saying that it was
conclusion.
John McCarthy was like talking shit to his own son.
Yeah,
his son was one of the judges for that fight. He was like, "Yo, you got it wrong, bud."
Yeah,
and then a lot of people were saying they believe that the crowd influenced the judges, and this is something possible. Like, you know what sucks is that is a very real thing. Where if you have a judge that doesn't know that much about what's going on, but they hear stuff, they're like, oh, okay, I guess, like literally, like that is, it's appalling what some of these judges don't know. like is going on.
We know it.
Yeah.
We know it as good as well as anyone. I mean,
Yeah.
we've been at fights where we've literally seen judges on their phone during fights and things like that. And if you see a judge on a UFC broadcast, well, first of all, they never show them directly. If you see them on the broadcast, it's because they're in the background of a shot. They would never show their faces because they don't want people to exactly know what they look like.
I wish they would put them up in like the dope, like the millionaire seats or whatever, like the the boxes. Yeah. And like, hey, you know what? Turn to them and let them hold up like a card. I think that'd be more like blood sporty. Like Chuck Norris.
A lot of people are calling for open scoring, like between the rounds, and I don't think that fixes the issue.
I think like
because if you keep everything the same, but you just add open scoring, then it just gives the commentators something to talk about after the round's over of, why do you think they scored that second round for Patty? That makes no fucking sense, huh?
Yeah, like they would have been going
They suck at judging fights, you know? But that doesn't change the fact that when that third round ends, the result's going to be the same. I think that an idea that I've heard that I've liked is adding 2 more judges.
I like that.
Yeah, I think that's better.
It's the biggest thing is that the states have to be more accountable for like the requirements. Because, man, as someone who has worked for a judge, as someone who has helped train officials in a certain state that he lives in alongside certain referees that are in the UFC and travel internationally, like, states do not hold these people accountable.
No.
And it is, like, it is honestly appalling. Like, there need to be day before, like, coverings of, like, hey, I'm going to select 10 judges for 3 people to do this. Or if it is, like, 5, like, select 8. And like have a couple in case people like fail like the day before test. Like everything also changes, and so many times like commissions just do not keep updating. Like we live in a fucking like someone knows best society just because like they were told they might know it and they actually don't know shit. Like and it's why I kind of stopped working along government. Yes. Oh my god. And
the commission is
and the state of North Carolina commission is its own odyssey of like corruption
and failure
and incompetence, and even like other sanctioning bodies like don't keep judging. Like it happens in amateur boxing, happens in amateur Muay Thai, it happens all the time at amateur levels, not just these pro levels. But,
I think that
these are the guys that are also judging some pro fights, and they're all like,
yeah. Now, did you hear about Doug Crosby? So Douglas Crosby is a judge. He is a professional fight judge for basically on the freelance, kind of like Herb Dean.
Yeah, like I know, like
John
he always
McCarthy.
like the UFC will like pay him to come out to stage.
It's not the UFC; it's the commissions that pay him.
Yeah.
So he.
People forget like Herb Dean doesn't make that much money. He doesn't work for the UFC. He just has technically everything covered, and the government pays him like $1,500, but like for those bigger things, like he gets X amount like
it's
per
about
fight.
$5,000 a fight.
Fight
I remember hearing John McCarthy do an interview a couple years ago, and he said he got about $5,000 to $8,000 a fight.
Yeah,
a little bit more for international.
But the
shows.
UFC like helps cover like the travel for these guys and stuff like that. But technically, like these guys are not. Like that's why I love the referees, man. Like there's some shit ones, but those are usually my favorite people. Like they have the best insight.
So both of these contests are under review.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, just the commission never immediately on their own just starts a review.
Mm-hmm.
They usually wait for a fighter to complain.
Right.
And in this case, neither fighter complained. But on Friday night...
That's because Jared Gordon's a good dude.
On Friday night, Bellator 289. Bellator 289.
Oh, I heard about...
Taking place
he is the one... He also scored that 50-45, and it was obvious, like the homeboy that lost, like, totally fucking wrestle-fucked the hell out of this guy. Like, they said it was incredibly one-sided.
He turns in a shitty scorecard. And not just a shitty scorecard, a ridiculously bad scorecard.
Yeah.
He flies across the country, and less than 24 hours later, he's delivering a questionable scorecard in the Patty Pimblett fight.
They're going to start restricting the amount of travel time for judges in between events. I did hear about that.
I feel like there's a big rework around the ethics and morality of MMA happening right now, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that there's so much money being funneled through MMA sports betting on a level that has never been seen before.
Yeah.
All these states are legalizing online sports betting. And people love betting on the UFC and MMA, even though it's the hardest thing to bet on. The only
Listen,
thing,
James Krause, man. He's the best at it.
yeah, I mean,
Yes and no. Yeah.
yes, and you know, I think that there's people out there like Skinny Bets is really popular. There's other people that are like that you pay $10 a month and you get their picks and you can just copy their picks, and when they win, you win, but they've got a lot more house money than you do to play with, right? So it's a little bit risky, but Skinny Bets, these guys, they're not attached to the industry. They're not in the locker rooms. But I think that because of not just the situation with Krause, I think that's the first domino to fall. But now we have the commissions actually acting like they give a fuck.
Yeah.
Because people online were going nuts about this, and I was like, did everybody just get here, son? I mean, these motherfuckers have been turning in questionable scorecards since 1998.
Yeah.
Since we came up with the rules, people have been getting them wrong. And no one's ever been held accountable for a bad scorecard before.
Yeah.
And this guy is in a way.
Yeah.
He's not going to be fined. He's not going to be fired. He'll be judging again.
It's absurd that they do not, even hearing about recent things of people just blatantly even saying, sorry man, I was looking at my phone. Well, fuck you should never judge again.
But the commission is doing something that I never thought they would do, which is publicly come out and say, we fucked up.
Yes.
And they never do that.
Never.
Never, never, never. I mean, even if you've ever, I'm having a hard time calling to mind a fight that definitely should have been overturned and wasn't. But there's been times where there's been fights that I thought the results should be overturned or at least made into a no contest or a DQ, and the judges the commission, they won't even hear the appeal because they're like, any entertainment of this appeal is a admission of fault by the commission. Mm-hmm. It says that our referee who was in there was incompetent, we hired the wrong guy, so we fucked up. So instead we're just going to back him because he's the symbol of our authority in there, and if he made the decision to stop the fight was stopped.
Yeah.
And for them to come out and be like, we're not only wrong, we're changing the rules. You can't, judge 2 events in 2 time zones in a week or in a weekend.
Yeah.
That's a good rule change. It's a start. It's a start.
Yeah.
I do think that it would be a much different job and people would be a lot less apt to take it if you did have to do scrums after and explain.
I was never afraid to explain why I judged a fight, and there were several times and I got in trouble for that, where people were like, you can't say that, and I'm like, last time I checked, people are glad that I'm judging, because even if they are friends of mine, I'm holding them accountable for what they need to be doing, right and wrong in a fight to win. And I got in trouble for telling people hey, I scored your fight this way, this is what I saw. And these fighters would then go, man, holy shit, that's great insight that I didn't see. Thank you. And I'm just like, no problem, dude, here to help. And that's because of me coming from a coaching background of someone who I wasn't trying to be a fighter. I'm just an asshole that signed up a few times to see if I could do it. And
right.
I enjoyed the training. And I also I think that what you learn from this is and we were talking about this earlier, you learn to hold yourself accountable to certain things. That means getting gooder. And guess what?
Getting more better.
Getting more better. But that's it. Judges should be able to sit there and say at the end of a fight, hey, I looked at it this way, and fighters need some good insight. But that also means that we would also know if these people are fucking idiots or not. Mm. Guess what? I feel very comfortable judging Muay Thai fights and kickboxing fights and boxing matches, and haven't done MMA yet, but a lot of people are telling me I should, especially with the state, and I'm like, fuck, I'll look into it. It just means that I can't put coaching on the back burner to do it right now because that's my full-time thing. But it's those scrums, we would know, hey, that judge doesn't know what they're talking about. They do know what they're talking about. And fighters would then hear insight where it's no BS. You lost the fight because of
here's
this.
What the judges are actually looking for.
Yeah, here's the judges are looking for. And it's hey, look, here's 2 things you're supposed to do in a fight. Try to knock the motherfucker out, or do enough that you win handedly. And the other person is trying to do the exact same thing right back to you.
I think,
and you have to know how that. And I was talking how the fight's going to go back and forth. Some of these judges don't know what the fuck's happening on the ground. They don't
Right.
know, like, I mean, look, hey, it's a very fine line between activity off the back and on top now. But these judges have to know what the fuck they're looking at. And MMA has so many things going on. Like, these people need to keep themselves fucking accountable. Like, I'd love to see the scrums. I'd love to see the scrums.
At the local level.
Or even handing in reports about, like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that should be...
Yeah,
that should
like
be
there
the
should
minimum.
be more. There should be more follow up.
Right, because the government,
Yeah.
and therefore the taxpayers are paying these judges to be at these events, and they're in Vegas. They get put up in a nice hotel. They're probably making way more than the ref is. You know, like it's one of those things where it's like, you know, you're a public official. You need to be a little bit more publicly transparent with your decisions, because this isn't, you know, a college wrestling match. This is a fight where potentially millions of dollars are on the line in the cage, and hundreds of $1 million in the case of like Patty's fight, for instance, could be on the line outside of the cage.
And it's also like, hey, when the UFC comes to town, everyone makes more fucking money. Like, it makes the scene better.
If you
like,
play your cards right.
If the cards are played right, man, it's
And
good
one thing
for
I
everybody.
think would help on the local level is if judges for local fights and amateur fight nights were required to attend the rules meetings.
Yeah.
Because in the time that I've been in the scene, five years now that I've been going to shows. At first, I had media credentials, then I became a commentator. So I've been behind the scenes. I've been intricately involved with the commissions, and I've seen them work. I've never once seen a judge at a rules meeting that wasn't also a referee.
I have been around this for 4 times as long as that, and
Jimmy
I've
Neely
only
and
seen
Desiree Neely. It's the only exception.
Yeah, like there's only a handful of times I've seen judges sit there and sit in on the rules meeting to make sure like they know what like needs to be going on. Because
Well, not
like,
only that,
like
but,
the
like-
ref is deciding like, hey, are you taking damage in that fight? And like they'll give out like what they're looking for, and the judges.
The ref has to ask before the rules meeting is over, or at least I don't know if they have to, but it's like etiquette for them to be like, "Does anybody have any questions for me?"
Yes.
The judge should say the same thing.
Yeah.
Like if I'm an amateur fighter, especially in North Carolina where you can't head kick, I got some questions. Like, what are we looking for on the ground exactly? You know, what is damage? What is control?
And I'll tell you from experience, a lot of the people I've seen as judges at MMA fights are people with only a striking background that don't know fucking
Dude,
shit
that's being
about.
so goddamn generous. You're
Yes.
being so generous. I'm pretty sure that, I'm not going to name any names, but I'm pretty sure that at least 2 of the judges on the North Carolina circuit from that we know that are on the new panel as well, pretty sure they've never even done a cardio kickboxing class.
Yeah. Oh no, trust me, I know.
And,
like,
you know,
and it's like I've always been like,
I can't picture fucking Adley Bird in a kickboxing class
no,
either.
yeah,
You know?
and there's a lot of truth to where it's like I will put my foot down about like if I know something more than someone else, and that's why I've gotten along with some of the people on commission. That's also why I sometimes don't.
Now I did agree with the decision for the main event.
It being a draw.
Blachowicz Ankalaev
Yeah.
fight. Ankalaev was definitely winning the fight at the end, but Jan had a lot of success early, and moreover, it was just a terrible fight. I mean, it was not the worst fight in the world by any means, but it was already a fight that no one really wanted to see, and it had that energy about it. It had like a bad energy on it. And before the fight was...
We're here still because we still paid a lot of money for these tickets.
Before the fourth round was over, Dana had walked to the back and started matchmaking Glover versus
Jamal Hill.
Jamal Hill.
Jamal Hill with the great fucking like Instagram video of like, how do y'all watch your MMA fights? And then he hits like his phone's calling and he looks and I'm like, damn, I like this dude a lot.
He's
man.
got the fucking gut because he's out of
Yes,
camp.
dude. Like that guy, man. Like, I'd like to see Glover get the belt back because goddamn, good for you, bro. But at the same time, like, I wouldn't be mad if Jamal Hill.
Now the fights you're gonna want to watch.
Yes.
Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Alex Morales.
Oh, okay. I was listening to a fight companion on that, and like I heard everyone go nuts. Like I heard about like what happened, but man, I heard it was very one-sided for Morono up until that.
It was just it reminded me a lot of Dober Green.
Really? Oh fuck.
Darren Till versus Dricus Duplessis.
I heard that Darren Till, like even though he lost, he had a great showing. Like he had some flashes of old, but it's still like he has that mental block about.
He doesn't belong in middleweight.
Yeah.
He just doesn't belong there.
But he also can't make the 70.
He says he can't. We don't know. I mean, he says that he's just done trying. You know?
Yeah.
He hasn't really... I don't know. He's just so average at middleweight. To undersized, almost. He's just an average guy at middleweight.
Yeah.
But he was a giant at welterweight.
Yeah.
And he could keep people away at welterweight. At this weight, he just doesn't quite have the strength to get people off of him when they're on him.
Yeah.
And Duplessis almost got finished like 3 times.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I was hearing.
Dude, Till was hitting these fucking step-in elbows
Yeah,
that I thought were going
hearing.
to kill him. I thought he cannot get stepped in, elbowed in the face again. It just can't happen. He'll go down. And sure enough, he took 2, 3, 4 more. Yeah. Till definitely had some flashes of brilliance there. And I, think that there's more for him. But I think he's probably done fighting in the UFC.
I think so.
I think that's the last fight on his UFC contract. He kind of spoke in the press conference that he's like kind of open to fighting outside the UFC or in different rule sets even.
Interesting.
So I think hopefully that means he goes somewhere where he can safely cut to a lower weight, like with like a hydration test.
Interesting.
Or I hope that doesn't mean when people say they are open to fighting in different rule sets, what I always hear is I'm open to fighting bare knuckle.
Yes,
BKFC.
that's what I was just.
I was like,
to...
please God, don't tell me this motherfucker is going to go do BKFC.
Please no. Please
He's such
no,
a good
Lord.
fucking kicker. Like
Yeah.
I'm just like, these guys that are like great kickers always go there, and it's like, I understand you're trying to strike while the iron's hot, but in 2 years...
Some of these guys just get, hey man, have you been kicked a lot like these guys have? They just get fucking sick of it after a while, I bet.
Tapuria versus Mitchell was very good, but
Yeah.
like we said before the show...
That put Bryce Mitchell into a bad place.
A little one-sided.
Yeah.
Rosas Jr. looked good.
Yeah.
Not the fastest submission in the world by any means, but
very impressive for what he did.
He got every position cleanly.
He's what
like,
the UFC was hoping Chase Hooper would do. Like, this kid is like the full package of 18.
I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
He just submitted Jay Perry.
I know, but for an 18-year-old to still be hitting this and having that kind of, and to me, it's the composure on how he walked out. I'm like, man, that is some impressive fucking energy for an 18-year-old from today's generation to have like this kind of confidence and gusto. Like, am I saying he belongs in the top 15? Nowhere near it. He is clearly like bottom on the fucking list, and he should be. Like, I think that he should try to fight for the top 15 in like 6 fights, 7 fights even. Like, dude, you've got time. Like,
he's not just making history as the first 18-year-old to fight in the UFC. He's also making history as the first Oblivion character to fight in the UFC. You wouldn't understand this reference, but I pulled up an image that may help. Elder Scrolls Oblivion. I mean, he looks exactly
looks like a poorly made video game.
He looks like the hero of Kavaч.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Some people in our audience may understand that. That might just be for you, Davey. Jairzinho Rosenstruck, quick knockout on Dacus.
Man, like I said, the UFC fucking hates the Dacus brothers, bro.
You called it. Our Curtis versus Joaquin Buckley was really good.
That was a really good fight.
Really good fight. Then
shout out to Curtis for his post about today's day I pay out my $30,000 for my winning to like my management and coaches and team, and I'm like, damn, good for you, bro. Like, that means he's also putting money aside in the right ways.
Right.
Like,
yes.
if he's paying that much, like, fingers crossed, like, you've seen guys pay that much to managers and they don't fucking deserve it.
They're getting fucked.
But, like, with the team that he's around, there's people, like, looking out for him. So, like, good for him for making the most of his time in the UFC. Like, he's not coming for the title, he's coming for the fight bonuses.
Now, you and I talked about Alex Caceres versus Julian Rosa. We also watched Dober and Green. Were there any other fights that stuck out to you on this past
we already talked about Strickland Cannonier.
Yes.
The Bobby, like, man, that was heartbreaking, but goddamn, Dober has that he is a Dober man. Like, that is it. Like, an awesome fight to watch live. Like, and the same thing with Sacerez's head kick knockout.
Did you see Brian's fight?
I did.
Did he get wrestle fucked?
He got fucked up. Like, I mean,
he on the feet too.
Like, he got dropped each round, I think, and the guy just dove on top and like. But Brian, Battle, and Tom, they were like, man, he was even better than what we watched.
Well, the guy's that last name ends in an OV.
Yeah.
You know the rules.
Like, there's, like, the behind the scenes of, like, Brian had a rough weight cut. He was sick. Like, it was just, like, one of those, like, to fight that kind of guy, you have to be perfect to stand a chance. And it was, like, there was, like, that 20% that he didn't have in the tank because of, like, they're saying a bad weight cut, him being sick. He was hospitalized after the weight cut.
He's cutting so much.
Yeah, he's a surprise.
Now that he's fighting at welterweight, it's very hard for me to believe that it's not difficult.
Yeah, I think that he needs to go up to like the UFC PI for a couple weeks, and they can help shift to see like, hey, should you be a middleweight or should you be a welterweight? I think that he's too small for middleweight. He's a very narrow guy.
He's narrow.
Yeah.
He should be a welterweight, but I think what may be getting him in trouble is weight you cannot lose. And what I mean by that is excess skin. Because he's always had a little bit of excess skin around his midsection.
Big. He used to be a
He fought Alex. He weighed in against Alex Pokey at 253.
Yeah.
Or something like that. That was like 5 years ago. So Brian, I'm sorry if I'm misquoting there, but I was at least 240.
He was
a heavyweight fight.
He was big.
It was a heavyweight fight in North Carolina, which the limit is 265.
Yeah.
He was a huge motherfucker, and now he's fighting at 170 in the UFC and head kick KOing people. It's like, that's a lot of weight to lose in 5 years, and even if you're doing it in the most healthy way possible,
him doing it back to back, that's his third fight this year. I mean, he's been staying active, but the shit catches up,
and people love him.
Yeah,
he's a guy people like watching. So,
I'll say this: I love seeing how Brian and the Carolina Combat guys handle defeat, and they're like, "Hey, man, we're still in this to get better."
For sure.
And he's one of those guys where he keeps getting better because he knows how to reset and readjust and get better from a loss.
Well, he's lost before. We commentated his first
pro fight, his pro
debut against Nicholas Martino, and he got armbarred in like a minute. And
less than that, dude. It was so fast.
Yeah, he got armbarred and lost, and then didn't lose again until he got to the UFC.
Yeah.
So I mean, I like Brian a lot, and obviously we have all the respect and love in the world for his coach, and we have we basically, or at least I do anyway, I kind of, look to Tom as an example of how to lead a fight team.
Yeah.
He's a great coach, and what he's done with Brian is great, but I feel like, people around here know that he's got a bunch of guys that could be great. He's got a
squad coming up.
He's got a bunch of guys that could be
and
great.
He's opening these guys up, and you're seeing the Jimmo team as well, and guys from Brunson's, they're taking what they're seeing and they're bringing it back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys, so that is it for us today. Short one, but, that's how it goes. It's the holidays. Christmas is in a couple days.
Fucking wild.
It's the 20th, so in 6 days, Christmas will be here and gone.
I'm going to take some days off, which I don't know how to do as an adult.
Yeah, you're going to Connecticut, and you're going to not see the inside of a gym for 4 days, which is going to probably going to kill you, honestly.
A little bit, man. Yeah. I'm like that, whenever, I only do a vacation, I travel a lot for fights. And sometimes we're lucky enough that we have a day or two where it's just we just hold pads for our fighter once or twice in the day before, which compared to my usual day.
Or we're commentating.
Or we're commentating.
We have a day
and
where we can go to the aquarium.
For a half day, yeah. I don't do much time off, man.
Yeah.
And so have you seen the memes of the goth kid at the beach? He's happy to be there, but he can't smile.
I always think about Chris Gonzo when he was in, maybe it was Cancun or the Bahamas or something, but he just saw a guy hitting mitts on the beach and was like, "Let me get around.
Let me get around it." Yeah. Now, but I think this year is definitely I've made it a point to actually enjoy
slow down and enjoy
reset
yourself.
and just okay, I'll be in Connecticut. I'm just gonna go eat some good fucking food. Hang out with Talia's family and just I don't know, maybe go see what Long Island has to offer. I don't know, maybe run into the Sarah-Longo gyms. Let me swing on something, please.
Get some pizza.
Let me smell it. Let me.
Whoa!
What? Let me just smell the gym.
Say, pause.
Let me just smell the gym. Oh God, it smells like a gym. Thank God.
All right, guys, we'll be back next week. Probably with
cocaine. What?
One more episode of the year, and then. We've got some big things coming for the show in 2023. I've got some major plans coming up for the show. Lots of new stuff, lots of new types of content and episodes and guests and all kinds of fun things. We've been doing this for almost a year now, so I'm starting to get comfortable enough to experiment and try new things. So let's try new things this year, and until then, enjoy yourselves and the fights.
Drop out of school, kids.